The first glimpse, the silence of space stretched endlessly, cold and dark. For months, the exploration ship Aurora drifted beyond the known maps of humanity. Its crew tired but alert. They had been sent on a long mission, searching for new stars, new resources, and maybe new friends. But what they found that day was something none of them could have imagined. Lieutenant Marcus leaned forward in his chair, eyes fixed on the glowing screen. A signal pulsed across the darkness, repeating in strange patterns. It wasn't random static. It wasn't natural. It was organized. It was language. "Captain, you need to see this," Marcus whispered, his voice trembling. Captain Reyes walked over, her dark eyes narrowing as she watched the rhythm of lights on the screen. The pattern repeated every 60 seconds, carrying with it power, confidence, and a hidden message. It was not a cry for help, nor a warning, but a declaration. They had found something, no, someone, and not just a small colony or wandering traders. This was the sign of something bigger, something ancient, something proud. The crew felt a shiver run down their spines. For days they tracked the signal, following it across distant systems. Every jump brought them closer, and every jump filled the crew with both excitement and dread. If there was a civilization powerful enough to broadcast like this, they must have ruled these stars for centuries. The humans whispered to each other, imagining giant fleets and golden cities waiting for them. Finally, the signal led them to the edge of a vast star cluster. Through the mist of cosmic dust, lights flickered like jewels against the darkness. The scanners lit up with shapes, stations, shipyards, and warships, more than the crew had ever seen. There it was, their first glimpse of the so-called galactic empire. The sight was breathtaking, overwhelming, almost impossible to believe. Dozens of planets circled their suns, each one glowing with cities that stretched from pole to pole. Massive starships drifted like sleeping giants, their armored hulls reflecting the light of 1,000 stars. The empire looked strong, invincible, untouchable. The crew sat in silence, staring at the screens. For a moment, even Marcus forgot to breathe. This was not just another civilization. This was power on a scale humanity had never witnessed. Captain Reyes spoke softly, almost to herself. "We are not alone." But beneath the awe, a strange feeling stirred. The signals they intercepted from the Empire were loud, proud, and full of arrogance. They spoke of victories, of dominance, of enemies crushed beneath their fleets. Yet something felt off. The Empire spoke too loudly, boasting too much. It was as if they were hiding something. Marcus noticed it first. Small details in the transmissions repeated words about strength and unbreakable power. Why would someone so strong feel the need to keep shouting about it? The humans exchanged nervous glances. The Empire might look invincible, but appearances could deceive. Still, the danger was real, and they knew it. If the Empire saw humans as a threat, their fleets could erase Earth in hours. The crew debated their next step. Some wanted to stay hidden, to observe quietly, and return to Earth with the news. Others argued that this was a chance, a historic moment, to make contact and learn. Captain Reyes listened carefully, but inside her heart pounded like war drums. Finally, she gave her order, her voice calm but firm. "We approach, but carefully. No sudden moves, no threats. We go as explorers, not as soldiers." The crew nodded, though fear lingered in their eyes. Their ship moved slowly toward the nearest Imperial beacon, its engines whispering through the void. As they drew closer, the Empire's signals grew louder, clearer. Voices filled the command deck, alien voices that carried pride and contempt. One message repeated again and again: "The Empire is eternal. The Empire is undefeatable." The words made the crew uneasy. The humans didn't know yet if this empire was friend or foe, but they knew one thing: its arrogance was as vast as its fleets. And deep inside, Marcus let out a quiet laugh. If history had taught humanity anything, It was that those who shouted the loudest often had the weakest walls. The Aurora sailed into the shadow of the Empire. Every screen showed power. Every word they heard carried pride. But in the silence between those signals, in the cracks of their arrogance, humanity sensed something else. A weakness, a truth waiting to be uncovered. Captain Reyes looked at her crew, her eyes steady. "Remember this moment," she said. "Galaxy will never be the same again." And with that, humanity took its first step into the Empire's domain, not with fear, but with a hidden smile, for the humans had seen through the glitter and the gold. And they wondered, what if the mighty Empire was the proud Empire? The first contact came not with a handshake, but with a challenge. As the Aurora drifted near the Empire's beacon station, a flood of signals struck their cones. The voices were sharp, commanding, dripping with superiority. "Identify yourselves," the aliens demanded. "No ship enters the domain of the Galactic Empire without bowing to its authority." The crew exchanged uneasy looks. They had expected curiosity, maybe even hostility, but not this blunt arrogance. Captain Reyes activated the translator and replied with steady words. "We are explorers from Earth. We come in peace, seeking knowledge and friendship." The reply came instantly, mocking. "Earth? A name unknown. A world insignificant. How amusing that dust-born creatures dare to speak to the Empire." Laughter rippled through the alien voices. Cruel and sharp, the humans sat in silence, the sting of insult heavy in the room. Marcus clenched his fists, but forced himself to remain calm. He studied the alien transmission, noticing the confidence in their tone. It was the laughter of someone who believed they had already won, someone who thought power itself could never fade. The aliens allowed the Aurora to dock at a massive orbital station. From afar, it looked like a golden crown circling the star, its towers gleaming against the void. Thousands of ships swarmed around it, warships, carriers, and transports. The humans had never seen so much metal in one place. As they docked, the alien soldiers stood waiting, tall and armored, their helmets shaped like beasts of legend. Their weapons glowed with energy, and their stares cut through the humans like knives. Yet behind those helmets, some eyes shifted. Nervously, just for a second, Marcus caught it, and he wondered, what fear were they hiding? The humans were escorted into the grand hall of the station. Columns of silver rose high into the air. Banners of the Empire stretched across the walls. At the far end, a throne of crystal shone, and upon it sat a governor of the Empire, his. Armor was polished gold, his eyes full of disdain. "You are honored," the governor said coldly, "to stand in the presence of the Empire." Captain Reyes bowed her head slightly, showing respect but not submission. "We come to learn," she said, "and to share, if you are willing." The hall echoed with laughter. "To share?" The governor repeated. "What could dirt dwellers from a forgotten star share with us? We have conquered 1,000 worlds, defeated 1,000 enemies. Our power has no rival." His voice boomed, but it carried something else to an edge. Of desperation, like a man shouting to convince, not others, but himself. Marcus whispered to Reyes, "They boast too much, Captain. It sounds less like pride and more like fear." Reyes gave a slight nod, though her face stayed calm. She had noticed it as well, the cracks behind the crown. The humans were shown the city within the station, skylines of glass towers, endless markets, and streets filled with alien citizens. Everywhere they went, loud screens displayed the empires. Victories, soldiers marching, fleets returning, crowds cheering, always cheering. But Marcus noticed the fear in the citizens' eyes. They clapped because they must. They cheered because silence was dangerous. Behind the glitter of power, there was a shadow of control. The humans realized this empire was built not on strength, but on fear. At night, in their quarters, the crew spoke quietly. "This empire looks invincible," one said. but it feels hollow. They think we are weak, another added. But maybe it is they who are fragile. Reyes listened, her mind already working on the puzzle before them. The next day, the governor invited them to a fleet review. Hundreds of ships assembled in formation, their engines glowing like stars. The governor smiled with sharp teeth. Behold the strength of the Empire. All who oppose us burn. But as Marcus scanned the fleet data, he noticed something odd. Some ships were outdated. Others carried scars of battles not shown in the broadcasts. The Empire had suffered defeats, many defeats, but it hid them behind grand parades and golden speeches. The proud mask was slipping. If only someone dared to laugh. When the review ended, the governor leaned closer to Reyes, his voice soft but venomous. You will tell your people this truth. Earth is nothing. Humanity is nothing. The Empire is eternal. Reyes smiled calmly, though inside her heart burned with defiance. She replied, We will tell our people what we have seen, Governor. Nothing more, nothing less. As they walked back to the Aurora, Marcus chuckled under his breath. What's so funny? Another crew member asked. Marcus shook his head, still grinning. They want us to fear them, but all I hear is shouting. And the louder someone shouts, the weaker they are inside. Reyes didn't laugh, not yet, but her eyes glimmered with a thought. Maybe Marcus was right. Maybe the mighty galactic empire was nothing more than a stage. And maybe humanity would be the ones to pull down the curtain, nothing more than a paper crown waiting to fall. Cracks in the throne. The Aurora left the shining station behind, but the crew carried heavy thoughts. What they had seen was impressive, yet something about it felt staged. The Empire's fleets were large, its halls were grand, but the more the humans looked, the more they sensed a hidden weakness. It was like staring at a wall, painted gold beautiful on the outside, but hollow if struck. Days passed as the ship drifted deeper into the Empire's space. Captain Reyes ordered constant scans, recording every signal, every whisper from the stars. The Empire's broadcasts continued, endless streams of victory songs and speeches of power, but underneath those waves of pride, Marcus detected fragments of other voices, static at first, then faint. Words, whispers that spoke not of glory, but of rebellion. Whole colonies were rising in secret, their people tired of bowing to a crown that only demanded and never gave. The humans listened closely, their hearts pounding with every intercepted cry. One message repeated through the static, desperate but brave. The Empire is broken. Its fleets are weak. Its throne is crumbling. Rise with us. The crew froze at those words, staring at each other in silence. It was proof the Empire was not as invincible as it pretended. Marcus leaned back, his lips curling into a smirk. So this is the great galactic empire, a giant held together by fear, he muttered. Reyes frowned, though she felt the truth in his words. If these rebels were right, then the Empire's power was already slipping through its claws. The humans decided to investigate further. They redirected their course to a mining world on the edge of the Empire, where the whispers seemed strongest. The journey was dangerous, but curiosity burned hotter than fear. When they arrived, the sight stunned them. The planet was scarred, its surface dark with smoke. Factories towered over broken homes, and soldiers patrolled the streets like wolves. Everywhere the humans looked, citizens walked with lowered heads, silent and afraid. But in the shadows of those factories, secret symbols glowed on the walls, scratched in haste. The symbols were simple chains broken in two, a mark of rebellion, a sign of hope. Marcus touched one of the carvings and smiled. They're fighting back, even if the Empire doesn't want anyone to know. At night, while the crew observed from hidden vantage points, they saw it happen. A group of miners gathered in silence, whispering plans, hiding weapons. Their eyes burned with anger, but also with fear. If the Empire found them, death would be swift. The humans recorded everything, every detail. Reyes knew this evidence was more powerful than any fleet, if shown. To the galaxy, it could shatter the Empire's mask of invincibility. The thought filled her with both excitement and dread, but then came the risk. The governor from the station had not forgotten them. He sent a patrol of warships to shadow the Aurora, their presence like hawks circling prey. The humans knew their time was short. Marcus studied the Empire's patrols, noticing the scars on their ships. Some hulls were dented, others bore marks of recent battles, and yet none of those defeats had been spoken of in the Empire's broadcasts. The lies grew clearer by the day. One evening, as the Aurora hid behind a shattered moon, the crew intercepted a secret Imperial transmission. It was not meant for them, but it spilled across their screens anyway. Losses heavy, fleet destroyed, rebellion spreading. Throne demands silence. The crew stared at the words, their hearts racing. There it was, the Empire's great secret. They were losing wars, not winning them. They were silencing rebellions, not crushing them. The Empire was bleeding, and it feared the galaxy would laugh if the truth came out. Marcus laughed first, unable to hold it back. It was quiet at first, then louder, echoing in the command deck. "Can you believe this?" He said between chuckles. The mighty Empire, hiding like a child afraid of the dark. The others joined in, their tension breaking into bitter laughter. Reyes didn't laugh, not yet, but her eyes hardened with resolve. "This is more than arrogance," she said. "This is a crumbling throne, and they're holding it together with lies." Her voice was steady, but inside she felt the weight of history pressing on her shoulders. As the Aurora sailed away from the mining world, carrying stolen evidence of the Empire's weakness, the crew knew one thing. The Empire was not eternal, not undefeatable. It was only a matter of time before the cracks grew wide enough for the whole galaxy to see, and humanity would be the ones to show those cracks to the stars. The mockery begins. The evidence sat heavy in the Aurora's databanks. Recordings of rebels whispering in the dark, Imperial fleets retreating in shame, and governors demanding silence. For any other species, such knowledge might have been kept hidden, a secret weapon to be used carefully. But humans were different. They had a weapon the Empire had never faced before: laughter. It began as a test. A single broadcast slipped through the Empire's networks. The humans sent out a short message to the nearby colonies, their voices steady but filled with humor. "Citizens of the Empire," the message began, "we bring you news. The eternal fleets you cheer for have been running from battles like frightened children." Then they added a clip, raw and unedited, of Imperial commanders begging for reinforcements, their voices breaking with fear. At first there was silence, then the laughter began, soft and nervous at first, then louder, across the colonies. Aliens listened and laughed for the first time in years, not because they were free yet, but because the mask of the Empire had been cracked wide open. The Empire reacted with fury. Warships scrambled, stations locked down, governors ordered arrests. But the laughter could not be silenced. The humans had planted a seed, and it spread faster than fire on the Aurora. Marcus replayed one of the intercepted messages, shaking his head in disbelief. "Listen to this. The throne commands silence." "Do not report the loss," he mocked, imitating the panicked tone of the Imperial officer. The crew laughed so hard their sides hurt. In that moment, fear melted away, replaced by a boldness none of them had felt before. Captain Reyes, though more serious, understood the power of this laughter. "It's not just jokes," she said firmly. "It's breaking chains. Fear kept this Empire alive. If we turn that fear into mockery, they'll lose control." The crew nodded, their smiles fading into determination. This was no longer just about exploration. It was war, but fought in a way the Empire could not understand. The humans crafted more broadcasts. One showed images of outdated Imperial ships alongside Earth's lean and efficient warcraft. "Look at your mighty empire," Marcus teased in the transmission. "Rusting hulls painted gold, while real strength stands in silence." Another broadcast shared rebel voices declaring their hope, paired with human laughter echoing like a challenge across the stars. The Empire's leaders panicked. They called humans liars, tricksters, deceivers. They threatened to erase Earth from the galaxy, but the harder they shouted, the more hollow they sounded. Even their own citizens began to chuckle quietly in their homes. Fear was breaking, replaced by ridicule. One night, the Aurora intercepted another Imperial broadcast, this one meant for governors only. "Stop the laughter. Stop it at all costs. The throne demands obedience. The throne demands silence." Marcus grinned and turned to Reyes. "They're begging us not to laugh, Captain. I think we just found their greatest weakness." Reyes allowed herself a thin smile. "Then we keep laughing." But the Empire would not remain still. They dispatched a fleet to hunt the Aurora, their pride wounded, their arrogance burning hotter than ever. The humans knew they could not win a direct fight. Not yet, so they played another trick. As the Imperial fleet approached, the humans hijacked. There comes and broadcast a parody. Alien commanders watched in shock as their own speeches were replayed with human voices mocking every word. "The Empire is eternal," Marcus said in a mocking tone. "Unless, of course, someone sneezes on it." The crew laughed, and so did thousands of citizens listening secretly across the stars. The Imperial fleet hesitated, their captains humiliated. Orders were confused, formations broken. The humans escaped easily, slipping through the chaos their laughter created. The Empire had not lost a battle of guns, but it had lost something worse. It had lost respect. Back on Earth, when the broadcasts finally reached human space, the people roared with pride. They saw their explorers standing against an empire that had ruled for centuries, not with endless weapons or armies, but with wit, courage, and boldness. Earth's leaders knew there would be war, but for the first time, they believed they could win it. Captain Reyes stood at the viewing deck, her crew behind her. The Empire's stars glittered. In the distance, sharp and cold, "They want us to fear them," she said quietly. "But we'll do worse. We'll make them a joke." The crew nodded, fire burning in their eyes. The galaxy had never seen humans before, but now it would never forget them. As the Aurora disappeared into the dark, the Empire's throne trembled, not from cannons, not from invasions, but from the unstoppable force of mockery. For once laughter began, it could not be contained, and humanity had just begun to laugh. Asterisk. Clash of fleets. The Empire could endure laughter no longer. Their governors shouted for revenge. Their admirals demanded blood. Their throne shook with fury. For centuries they had ruled by fear, and now fear was slipping through their fingers. Replaced by the sound of mockery, human voices echoed across their worlds, daring them, humiliating them. The order came swift and merciless. Destroy the humans, erase their world. Let no one laugh at the Empire again. The command spread. Through their fleets like fire, warships, carriers, and dreadnoughts gathered in a force so large it darkened the stars. On Earth, the message was clear. The Empire was coming, not to speak, not to threaten, but to kill. Panic swept across nations, but the leaders stood firm. "We will not bow," they declared. "If they want to fight, humanity will give them." The Aurora was recalled home, its crew carrying the intelligence they had gathered. Marcus stared at the glowing maps of enemy fleets, his jaw tight. "They outnumber us 10-1, he said grimly. "Maybe more." Reyes nodded, her voice steady. "Then we'll have to outthink them." Humanity prepared with everything it had. Fleets of lean warships launched from shipyards. Weapons guided by a is sharper than any alien. Mind were brought online. Every soldier knew the odds, but none turned away. They had seen the Empire's cracks, and they believed. A clash came in the black void between stars. The Empire's fleet arrived like a storm. endless lines of warships filling every scanner. Their admiral's voice rang out across the channels, dripping with arrogance. Earthlings, you will kneel before the eternal empire, or you will be ashes. Captain Reyes stood calm on the command deck. She gave a single order, her voice quiet but unshaken. Transmit. And then the humans sent their reply, a short message, only 3 words. We are laughing. The battle began. Imperial dreadnoughts fired volleys of plasma, their weapons blazing like suns. But the humans did not meet them with brute force. Instead, they moved like shadows, their smaller ships darting and weaving, guided by AI that predicted every move. Missiles struck from hidden angles, tearing through golden hulls. Fighter swarms sliced through carriers before their cannons could even lock on. The Empire had numbers, but their formations were clumsy, their arrogance blinding them. They had always fought enemies too afraid to resist. Now they faced humans, who laughed in their faces. Marcus shouted across the deck as another Imperial cruiser exploded into fire. They don't know what to do. They've never fought someone who doesn't fear them. Reyes nodded sharply, her eyes never leaving the battle screens. Keep pressing. Don't give them time to breathe. The Empire tried to rally there. Admirals screamed orders, demanding their fleets crush the humans. But their commands clashed. Their ships stumbled over one another, and with every mistake, human fire rained down harder. A moment of silence struck the battlefield as the Empire's flagship staggered under a sudden barrage. Its golden armor split, flames spilling into the void. On every frequency, the humans broadcast laughter. Not insults, not threats, just laughter, clear and sharp. The Empire's soldiers froze, their morale shattering. Rebel worlds listened too, their hidden radios crackling with joy. They heard the laughter, and they joined in. For the first time in generations, citizens of the Empire laughed without fear. And that sound traveled faster than any fleet, faster than any weapon. The battle ended in chaos. The Empire's grand fleet scattered, its proud dreadnoughts limping. Away, human ships remained in formation, scarred but unbroken. They had won, not because of greater strength, but because they refused to kneel. On the bridge of the Aurora, Marcus leaned back, exhausted but grinning. 10-1 odds, and they still ran, he said, shaking his head. Reyes stood tall, her voice low but filled with iron. This was not just a victory. This was humiliation. And humiliation spreads faster than fire. Back on Earth, the people cheered. Across the Empire's colonies, whispers turned into laughter, and laughter turned into defiance. The throne of gold trembled as news of defeat reached it. The Emperor demanded silence, demanded loyalty, but all he received was the sound he feared most, laughter. The galaxy had witnessed something new that day. The humans had not only survived, they had humiliated the greatest power in the stars. And though the Empire still had fleets, still had armies, it had lost the one thing that made it strong: fear. The humans had broken it, and the galaxy would never be the same. Asterisk the fall of fear. The Empire's fleets limped home in silence, their golden hulls scorched, their banners torn. Across the throne world, governors trembled as they delivered the news. The Emperor sat in his crystal hall, his voice thunderous with rage. Find the humans, destroy them, silence their laughter, he commanded. But the words rang hollow, even within his own palace, for the first time in centuries, the Empire's subjects were no longer afraid. On distant mining worlds, workers gathered in secret, not whispering, but laughing openly. On city planets, students scrawled mocking slogans on walls. The eternal Empire runs, they wrote. On frontier colonies, rebels raised banners not of fear, but of defiance. The laughter of humanity had given them courage. The Aurora drifted through space, intercepting transmissions from across the Empire. Reyes listened to them carefully, her expression firm but proud. We started this, she said to her crew, and now the galaxy is finishing it. Marcus grinned as he replayed a clip of alien citizens laughing at imperial speeches. "They sound free for the first time in their lives," he whispered. "The Empire tried to crush the spreading rebellion. They deployed legions of soldiers, ships to blockade rebellious worlds, and governors who promised punishment. But fear no longer worked. When soldiers marched, citizens mocked them. When governors threatened, crowds laughed in their faces. The Empire's power melted away, not with explosions, but with ridicule. On one broadcast, the Emperor himself addressed the galaxy, his face stern, his voice booming. The Empire is eternal. The Empire is undefeatable. The Empire will never fall." But as his speech spread through the stars, so too did another message: human laughter. The people laughed at the Emperor's every word, turning his proud declaration into a joke. The throne shook that day, not from rebellion alone, but from humiliation. The Emperor slammed his fist against the crystal armrest, his golden armor gleaming with anger. "They laugh at me," he roared. "Me, their Emperor." But no matter how he raged, the laughter only grew louder. Meanwhile, Earth prepared for what was to come. They knew the Empire would strike again. Desperate and furious, fleets were built, soldiers trained, alliances whispered among newly freed colonies. Humanity was no longer just defending itself. It was becoming the spark of a galactic uprising. The Aurora returned to one of the frontier colonies it had once observed. This time, instead of silent miners hiding in the dark, they found crowds chanting openly, chains broken into banners, children shouting in the streets. The humans were greeted not as strangers, but as heroes. "They laugh because you laughed first," one alien elder told Captain Reyes. "And now they will never stop." Marcus felt a chill as he watched the celebration. He realized this was no longer about ships or weapons. It was about spirit. The Empire had ruled through fear, but humanity had replaced that fear with defiance. And once fear was gone, the Empire had nothing left. Yet danger loomed. From the throne world came whispers of a final weapon, a desperate strike meant to silence Earth forever. The Emperor could not allow laughter to spread unchecked. He prepared his last armada, gathering every loyal ship, every desperate soldier. His pride demanded one final battle. On the Aurora, Reyes stood with her crew, staring at the maps of gathering forces. "The Empire is wounded, but it is not dead," she said calmly. "They will throw everything at us now, not because they are strong, but because they are afraid." Marcus chuckled darkly. "And fear makes people clumsy, Captain. They'll stumble again." Across the galaxy, rebellions flared like wildfire. One world after another rose up, encouraged by human defiance. Imperial soldiers found themselves surrounded not by fear, but by jeering crowds. Statues of emperors were toppled, banners of gold burned, and above it all, laughter echoed. Unstoppable and defiant, the emperor sat in silence on his throne, his crown heavy. For centuries, his power had been unquestioned, his words law, his fleets unmatched. Now, with each passing day, his rule crumbled not by cannons, but by mockery. He clenched his fists, swearing vengeance. "This laughter will end," he whispered, "even if I must burn the stars to silence it." On Earth, humanity prepared for that promise. They knew the final clash was coming, but they also knew the Empire had already lost something it could never regain: its peoples. Fear, and without fear, even the brightest throne would collapse into dust. Asterisk. Laughter that shook the stars. The Emperor's final armada gathered like a storm at the heart of the Empire. Every loyal ship was called, every soldier pressed into service, dreadnoughts, carriers, and legions of warships assembled into the largest fleet the galaxy had ever seen. It was not strength that drove them, but desperation. The throne demanded silence, demanded the end of laughter. On Earth, the alarms rang across every station. Scanners lit up with the approaching wave of enemy ships. Leaders gathered in silence, their eyes heavy with the knowledge of what was coming. Humanity had never faced such numbers, but they did not tremble. They had learned the Empire's greatest weakness, and they carried it like a blade. The Aurora stood at the center of the human fleet. Captain Reyes watched as thousands of human warships aligned in formation. Their engines burned bright. There, crews ready. Marcus leaned forward, his voice calm but sharp. This isn't just a battle, Captain. This is the final laugh. The Empire struck first. The void exploded with plasma fire. Entire squadrons burned in the opening wave. The humans answered with precision, their smaller fleets weaving like shadows. AI-guided missiles pierced golden armor, and railguns shattered ships in a storm of light. But still, the Empire pressed on, wave after wave, desperate to bury humanity under sheer numbers. The battle raged for hours. Explosions painted the stars red. Wrecks drifted like ghosts in the dark. The Empire's commanders screamed for obedience, for victory, but everywhere, their ships faltered, their soldiers hesitated. The memory of laughter haunted them. Every defeat, every scar reminded them of humiliation. Then, in the middle of the chaos, the humans did something the Empire never expected. They hacked into the Empire's own comms, and across every Imperial channel, every ship, every soldier, a single sound. Echoed laughter, human laughter, loud and fearless, rolling across the battlefield like thunder. The effect was instant. Imperial crews froze, their eyes wide, their hearts shaken. Some dropped their weapons. Some turned their ships away. They, proud armada, began to splinter, not from firepower, but from shame. The laughter broke them where plasma could not. Marcus laughed harder, tears in his eyes as he watched Imperial formations crumble. They can't fight it, he said between breaths. They've built their empire on fear, and fear is gone. Rey stood tall, her voice steady as she gave the final order. Press forward, end this. Human fleets surged, cutting through broken Imperial lines. Rebel ships joined the fight, rising from hidden worlds and shattered colonies. Together, they struck at the throne's fleet, tearing it apart piece by piece. The Emperor's flagship, a massive crystal dreadnought, burned as human cannons ripped its armor away. Inside his throne room, the Emperor watched in disbelief. His empire was collapsing before his eyes, not from invasion, but from laughter. He slammed his fists against the crystal, shouting, "They mock me. They mock the Empire." But his words meant nothing, for beyond his walls, his people were laughing too. At last, the human fleet broke through. The Emperor's dreadnought split apart, flames swallowing its golden crown. The throne that had ruled by fear for centuries was gone, and in its place, the sound of victory echoed. Not cheers, not roars, but laughter across the galaxy. Chains broke, statues fell, governors fled. Planets once silenced by terror erupted in celebration. Children laughed in the streets. Rebels danced under shattered banners. The Empire was dead, not because of its enemies' weapons, but because of their refusal to bow. On the Aurora, Rey stood before her crew. Her voice was quiet, but it carried through every soul on the ship. "Remember this," she said. "We did not just win a war. We changed the galaxy." Marcus smiled, his eyes gleaming with pride. And all it took was laughter. The galaxy would write songs, record histories, tell stories for generations. How the humans came with small fleets but fearless hearts. How they laughed at the throne that had ruled for ages. How their laughter spread like fire, breaking chains, shattering crowns, and toppling empires. And in the dark silence of space, one truth remained clear. Fear can rule for a time, but laughter can shatter thrones. And humanity's laughter had shaken the stars forever. Asterisk.